So I'm really excited to have our managing challenging behaviors conversation this evening. I did have some folks who took me up on my invitation to submit some questions in advance. And I was able to share those with our expert that unfortunately is not able to be here. They had a work emergency, and so I have to respect that. But we will absolutely be able to schedule like a follow-up call if anyone has additional questions, or they'll also be responding to your questions, particularly those that we're not able to address this evening. Awesome. Okay, so I think without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get things rocking and rolling. So if at any point something's going funky on your screen, just put it in the chat. I have that pulled up. Or you can absolutely jump in. I don't think that people are muted from my end, so I'll just ask if y'all be respectful and mute from your end. My name is Sarah Sheppers, and I'm the Community Engagement Director for Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan. I have been working for Girl Scouts for about 10 years, this council for about 7, and our sisters over along the western side of the state and northern Michigan over at gshom. So I can happily say that I have a lot of knowledge as far as like how these situations that we may be addressing this evening come up and go down. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk with y'all tonight. And come on, mouse, do your thing. Yay, welcome, Tony. Okay, so we're gonna get rocking and rolling. Did anybody have any questions just to get started today? Like something burning? Hey, Sarah, I need this emergency assistance, which hopefully you don't, because we should really be calling 911 in those situations, but okay, well, here we go. I think. Oh man, I hope what happened to Brenna doesn't happen to me tonight, where it's real slow. Come on, computer. There we go. It's going. So this evening we are going to be reviewing your mission critical role in addressing challenging behaviors and in mitigating them, and helping families and your co-leadership team and area teams be able to manage situations like this as well. So I know that, you know, we only have about another 40 minutes together, but we're gonna go through stuff pretty quickly. This is being recorded. I have a ton of resources that I'm going to be sharing with everyone too. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and send those out tonight. You're not necessarily gonna get the recording, but I'm gonna send you some documents this evening. I have your email address. So if you got an email from me the other day, asking you to submit questions, you're gonna get more information from me tonight. And if you didn't get that, then go ahead and drop your email in the box, and we will, in the chat box, and we'll make sure it gets to you. Okay, so your mission critical role, we're gonna talk about that as a volunteer. We're going to identify those behaviors that are normal and those that are cause for concern. And then we're going to talk about how to reduce those activities or those behaviors, and how you can control them, and how, you know, looking at yourself and the way that you present yourself, or the way that you confront those challenges, or the way that you set up the environment in which your Girl Scout activities are hosted in. All those things are going to go into how we can really limit the number of instances of those behaviors that everybody's a little bit nervous on how to manage. And then we'll also briefly review some resources that we have available for you. And then I'd love to hear some questions from the group as far as things that maybe you would like to know about on a future call. So with that, here we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna share something that Jen Holleran shared with us earlier this week on Monday. So if you were in on that call, you've seen this slide before, but the main thing I want to point out here is that we're all here because of girls. And during the pandemic, Mott Children's Hospital did do a study, and they found that teen girls are really suffering with feelings of anxiety and depression. There's a lot of bullying going on yet again, and girls are feeling really stressed. They've had a lot less independence, and they've had a limited amount of time with friends. So all of those things contribute to teen girls really having a heck of a year. So it's important that we kind of put ourselves in their shoes for a second. As difficult as the pandemic has been on us, their reality has really shifted as well. And so as we go through these managing strategies, I think it's really important that we just remember to jump in their shoes and look at the situation from their perspective. And knowing that these are the things that they feel or that they're challenged with right now, what can we do to assist in that? What can we do to help girls find that sense of independence and make sure that they have plenty of time with their friends and not add additional stress to their plate? So I think, okay, yeah. So this isn't great news from this slide, but it's great information that we were able to get that's current and for our state. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, and this was another slide that you would have seen possibly earlier this week if you were on that call with Jen Holleran and Jan earlier this week. And this is really important when it comes to leaders. And this is where I'm pointing out your critical role here, is that during this pandemic, during the last year, when girls were asked about who has positive views of mental health disorders and who's supportive and where are those supportive environments, hands down, girls indicated that Girl Scouts is the place that they feel safest, that they feel really understand mental health disorders and are able to be that place, are able to create that safe environment for girls so that they can flourish. And so more than their community, more than their school, more than their family, it's Girl Scouts where they find that. And to further expand on that, this I think is really important. Oh, and I might switch slides on you, and I hope not. But maybe I hope I didn't cover that for you guys. I don't think so. Okay. So when girls were asked within Girl Scouts, so within the movement, who do they feel like is most supportive, or what do they feel like supports them most? And it's not gshom, it's not Girl Scout programs, it's not just participating in Girl Scouts overall, it's the troop leader, it's you, it's our volunteers. And so knowing that, and knowing that you really are the change, you are making an impact on girls' lives, they count on you. I think that moving forward, we also should keep in mind that there's a lot of girls that may have felt abandoned this past year if maybe we didn't feel confident in hosting meetings virtually, or maybe you weren't able to get girls interested, or families weren't interested in doing a virtual Girl Scouting activity, or maybe you weren't able to meet in person at all. all of those things are contributing factors to a girl that might feel a little abandoned. And you need to know what a strong role you play in her life and how important that connection is to her. You may not feel it, you may not see it. She might be rolling her eyes and talking sass and not listening, and lots of but the reality is she really believes in you. She feels connected to you, and you make a significant impact in her life. So, and just to show that a little bit further, really send that home, I'd like to just share with you that when GSUSA was connecting, the Girl Scout Research Institute was conducting this research, they were working with an older group of girls, I think cadet seniors and ambassadors, and they actually had a girl that said, "My leader saved my life." And so I think that that's pretty incredible. No tears tonight, y'all. I think that's pretty incredible, and it's true. I know girls around here who have said the same thing. So that's on a national scale, of course, but we have girls that are feeling the same way. Okay, so so you're super important. You have a serious impact on girls' lives, and we know that girls need those caring, supportive adults. It's in our foundational elements, and we're so thankful to have you, and we're so glad that you joined us tonight to learn more about how to manage girls when they're facing such challenges. Okay, so I'm actually gonna jump ahead. Okay, so I'm sure that we're all very familiar with the 3 processes, and with the girl-led, cooperative learning, and learning by doing. The reason that I wanted to bring this up tonight, because you've again heard this earlier in the week if you were on Monday, welcome Susan Thorman, is that girls are going to learn, or girls are going to develop those skills, those social skills, that healthy social emotional component to development by these 3 processes. And so this is already built into Girl Scouts, and you're going to hear me talk in a few minutes about like how you can enhance their social emotional health, or enhance their feeling of connectedness and engagement by implementing these exact 3 processes through cooperative learning and learning by doing, and making activities girl-led. That cooperative learning piece, I really want to make sure that I kind of hit home, because the core element of cooperative learning is really to showcase the positive effects of interdependence, while also underlying personal responsibility. And so it's important that we really hit that cooperative learning home, because that's how they're developing those social skills. That's how they're learning to communicate with one another. And they find those words like, I don't feel comfortable going camping. I would like to try a different activity. Like, they learn those positive phrases through that cooperative learning environment. And so it's an excellent way to get girls socializing, to eliminate those situations of bullying, because if a girl doesn't feel super connected to her troop, and that she has at least one best friend in the troop, she is going to feel lonely, and she doesn't feel like she fits in. And so just put yourself in her shoes for a second, and think about when maybe you attend a community function, or maybe it's even your service unit meeting. Maybe it's another organizational meeting, a PTA or a church meeting. If you walk in and you don't know anybody, like, Do you feel kind of bashful, or are you that person that can no problem go over and talk to people and start those relationships? Well, a lot of girls can't do that yet. That's a skill that they have to develop, and they've only been on the planet for 5 to 17 years, so they haven't necessarily figured that out yet, and that's okay. But that's what we're here to help them do. And so these 3 processes, if it's something that you're not familiar with, definitely reach out to me and we'll get you connected. But that cooperative learning and learning by doing, and obviously girl led, I mean, hello, that's Girl Scouts, but those are 2 things that you really need to take a deeper dive into if you haven't so far. Okay, and the last piece about cooperative learning, because I did get a couple of questions in advance about how do we help girls stay on track, maybe girls that are easily distracted or really like to socialize or have a hard time following instructions or can't keep their fanny in their seat when you're asking them to. One of the things that I have tried, and I will admit to y'all on the call right now too, I actually have ADHD. So I can talk very intelligently about how some of these things impact girls and how they manifest. But if you give girls a time, like you say, okay, we have 15 minutes to work on this. Girls who have that little nudge of anxiety, who can't seem to sit still, who can't focus on the project, who aren't great listeners, they like to know what's happening next. So having a sign up that shows, you know, what's happening, like what the order of activities are for today. You know, in the source, there's a guide that just talks about, you know, what a troop meeting looks like, and how kind of like the breakdown of it. So those kinds of things are super helpful to girls that have a hard time focusing or sitting still or don't follow instructions. And the other thing that I would recommend is that when you have that 15 minutes set aside to finish this project, maybe have like just a small little teeny tiny Bluetooth speaker that you can like connect to your phone, or maybe the girls can connect to their phone and have 15 minutes worth of music. So maybe it's 3 songs, maybe it's 4 songs, whatever it is. You need to remind them when you get to the end of that first song and that second song, we've got 2 songs left, y'all. And maybe that's a job that you can give to a girl, or if you're doing like patrols and that kind of thing, a caper, that she can be in charge of keeping everybody on time. And maybe she's the DJ for this meeting or for that activity. Maybe she even gets to pick the music, who knows. But that's a really great way, because the music helps girls to focus, limits chatter, and helps them keep track of time. So that's my pro tip for you on that one. Okay, let's move on. Also with that, actually, I'll just throw this in there now too. Let's say you've got someone who has been exhibiting some concerns with, like, they have a hard time with transitioning. So, you know, you come in and we do the promise and law and the friendship circle, and then we jump into an activity. Maybe you notice that like kids are a little like down today, or maybe they're super full of energy. Maybe you change things up and you let them go outside for a little bit and run around to get those wiggles out. You kind of have to read the room, right? Like you have to see what's happening, and the name of the game is flexibility. And so if you keep that in mind, that like, I have to be flexible, like this is the girls' thing, we're going to do what suits them today. And often we'll have someone that has a really hard time with those transitions from activity to activity or parts of the meeting. And in those cases, what you can do, again, it's all about setting expectations. But if you grab like a little egg timer, or if you want to do the music thing again, I really recommend something with a clock or a timer. You can let them know that, hey, let's say, for example, that in 2 minutes, you're going to let everybody know it's the 5-minute warning. You have 5 minutes left. those 2 minutes before you give that 5-minute warning, you go to that child that has that trouble with transitioning and refocusing and maybe throws a fit, freaks out when it happens. You're giving them a heads up that, hey, just so you know, we're going to be cleaning up in about 1 more minute. And so you have 5 minutes. The 5-minute warning is coming. So I'm going to set this timer for 5 minutes so that you can keep an eye on how much time we have left. So you go to them in advance before everybody else is told that it's going to be time to clean up soon. And you give them a way to keep track of time. You praise them for their work on that project that they've been working on independently so quietly today, and cheer them on and make sure that they understand what's happening. And you want to tell them too, like, hey, here's what we're doing next. So that's the biggest thing that you should probably take away from today, is it's all about communication as far as like what you can do to make things go more smoothly. And it's understanding that when kids act out, they're trying to communicate. So here we go. We'll move on to an actual slide that has something to do with what we're doing. Maybe my computer will let me. Yay, here we go. All right, so there are many behaviors that are actually developmentally appropriate, and sometimes they just really can get to some of us adults. But so those younger school-aged students are going to be very concerned with fairness. That's why going through the Promise and Law is so great, and Daisy's experience with the pedals is so great, because that's a really easy thing to address right up front. And then lying or stretching the truth. Yeah, that's a big one. Like, oh, you know, I live 1,000 miles away, or I have sold 10,000 cookies. What, you know, that they exaggerate. So you just need to know that that's a thing. They're not intentionally, or they're not trying to be a stinker at all. That's just something that's natural for younger students. And tattling. Oh my gosh, tattling, I cannot stand it. And I remember my son all the time would cheat at Battleship. I mean, I just remember like my whole side of the board was covered with those little things about where I had tried to hit. And I was like, there's no place left for a ship. Like, what happened? And I finally spun his around, and he had moved them. So yeah, I was like, no, that's not okay. So yeah, that's a big issue. But then older students, things that are developmentally appropriate, and this is going to be middle school and high school, they really want nothing to do with adults. And even though they love you, even though you're so important to them, they would blow you off in a second if one of their buddies walked in the room. So they're gonna avoid you. They're gonna talk back. They're super sassy. Occasionally, they're gonna throw a curse word out there because they think they're everything in a bag of Skittles. And they want everyone to think they're super cool. So it's possible that they're going to choose not to do the activity because maybe it's not something that they know how to do, or that they don't think that they're specifically good at. So instead of looking foolish in front of everyone and actually participating in this, they're wanting to look cool. So they're just going to talk about how dumb it is. So, you know, in those situations, where those older students, like especially middle school and high school, like if they don't want to do the activity, they don't have to. Now, if it's like something cleaning up, or you know, we're doing our cookie booth signups or something like that, where we're, you know, goal setting or doing a group activity together, and it's not just independent work, then sometimes we have to like actually have a sit down and just, okay, can you tell me like what you would like to be doing right now? And always try to frame things in the positive. Okay, so here we go. So anything a child does, anything we all do, all behaviors are an attempt to communicate. Just because they've only been on the planet for 6 to 17 years, they may not yet know how to express how they're feeling or what it is that's got the bug under their bonnet, or I feel like that word spelled wrong. Sorry. Okay. They're trying to communicate with you, they just don't know how. So that's when they throw a tantrum, or they act, maybe it seems a little aggressive, but they are maybe roughhousing with someone, or they're not listening, or they're not sharing, or they're not engaged. Understand that that means something. And it's up to you as the adult who's been on here considerably more than 6 to 17 years, to figure out what the heck it is. And you can't just ask them, hey, what's wrong? Because they clearly don't know how to express it. So this is again why that group work is so important. We want girls to feel included. So it's important that maybe if you notice there's someone that's being kind of cast aside, or is not being included, or maybe because they have really bad hygiene and they don't smell so great today. Maybe the deal is that they need a little coaching, but then also they're going to need you to help them out today. They're going to need you to pair them up with a partner, because no one's going to be sitting next to them. And maybe you change your activity so that you go outside, so that the likelihood of, someone pairing up with them then is greater. But you're the person that has all the wisdom and the experience, and they're counting on you because you're their person. Even though you may not feel like you connect with that girl, she feels that you do. And you may be the only person in that troop meeting that she can count on. Like, her peers may be very intimidating, or may not be super welcoming, or maybe they make fun of her outside of the troop meetings. So whatever the case is, she's counting on you. And so you need to recognize that. Sorry, I was reading the chat from Rachel. Okay, so all behaviors are an attempt to communicate. You need to keep that in mind. Behaviors that persist, so those things that they keep doing, like every time they come to a troop meeting, they sit in the corner and pout when it's time to clean up. What the heck? Or every time we host, the soup kitchen, she never shows up. Like, whatever the case is, the behavior that continues or is repetitive, it's working. Whatever they wanted to get out of it, whether it's your attention, or it's a phone call to find out where she is so she feels needed, whatever it is, she feels like this is working, so I'm going to keep doing it. We're going to talk about how you address that in just a minute. And I'm wondering if you think by chance there could possibly be a connection between a child's ability to communicate how they're feeling, or what they think, or what's happening in their world, and that challenging behavior. Do you think that there's any kind of a connection? Yeah, there is, for sure. That's what it's all about. They don't know the appropriate way to express how they're feeling or what they need. So they found this other thing that works pretty well, and they're going to just keep doing it. Okay. So what can we do when we are faced with youth that is acting out, They're not staying in their seat. They're, when it's sit down time, they're not engaging with their peers. They're not working collaboratively. They are taking all the materials and crumpling them up and throwing them in the garbage can for that day's activity. They never have their lesson plans ready for their the troop meetings that they're supposed to lead. What do we do? And so we have to recognize that there's an underlying cause and needs that need to be addressed. And we need to take a positive approach to that. So when they're acting out, it's really great for you to kind of take a step back and evaluate what's going on, what just happened, what was the antecedent, what happened that caused them to behave this way, and then like how did they react, and then what happened afterward, what did they get out of it, what was the intent behind that behavior. And if you're just observing, you can absolutely like take some notes so that you have a recording of today's date. Here's what happened. Here was the antecedent. Here's how they reacted, and then what how that behavior was addressed. So if you can kind of keep track of those kinds of things right when they happen, that's really going to help you to be able to further assist that Girl Scout in her development. And it's going to help you to be able to communicate more effectively with the guardians or the families. And it's going to help you to be able to communicate what's happening with your Girl Scout Heart of Michigan teammates. And I'm going to go back for a second to what we were just discussing by observing and the child that continues to do that same behavior repeatedly because they're getting what they want out of it. It's important for you to like take a step back and try to see what it is that they're really looking for. Like as soon as you come over to them to try and help them with whatever it was that they were getting upset about, do they instantly like stop acting out? Like, is that what they were trying to get? Because if it is, then you don't want to react that way in the future. You want to instead give them words like, hey, if you're feeling frustrated because you don't like the pencil sharpener and your pencil just broke, like all you have to do is turn to your table partner and say, hey, could you help me with this? Or you could raise your hand, or you could come up to me and just say, hey, I need something else to write with. Like understanding what it is that caused it, how they reacted, and how they reacted to the solution, what they got out of it, that's going to really assist you in coming up with solutions in the future. So I think all of us are looking for like that quick, easy, how do we get out of this? How do we deal with this and move on? I've got 20 other girls that I'm working with, or in one troop's case that I talked to last night, they had 29 girls and another troop had 18. So well done. I love these big troops. Great job. And I think one of those was Tony Hackett. So Tony, if you're still here, great. I can't remember what I was just saying. Anyway, moving on. But helping them to just, if you can understand what's causing all these challenges, what they're trying to get out of it, you're going to be able to arm yourself with so many more solutions. You won't just be calling your membership specialist and saying, hey, I need this girl out of my troop, because that's just not very Girl Scout like at all. And put yourself in that family's shoes for a second. Like, how would that be handled in a way that is not incredibly crushing to girls? And, you know, talk about abandonment issues. Like, there's no great way to do that. So let's figure out what we can do as adults, because we've been on this planet longer. We have a lot more life experiences. What can we do to make the situation better? And I'm not suggesting that those girls that act out in such a way that they put others or themselves in danger. In those situations, that's an automatic, like, we've got to, get, if other people's safety are at risk, then get them out of this space. And, you're calling 911 if it's something like they've injured themselves or they're threatening somebody else with scissors or whatever. That's when you're calling 911, and then you're focusing on the girl, staying an arm's length away. I have a whole little sign for you that has the steps of what you would need to do in those situations. But like, those situations are like 0.000, 315 or whatever it is for pi. It's very rare. So let's not jump to that conclusion and just think that, like, okay, on a day-to-day basis, I have these 3 girls or these 2 girls that are really a handful. They don't listen. They don't participate. They don't help clean up. They don't show up to cookie booths. Like, let's not focus on what they don't do. Let's find out how to support them and help them make better decisions, better choices, and help them get involved. Help them make those friends to connect with those other girls socially. And we have lots of ideas for like troop activities and things that you can do, whether it's like building friendships or trying to get people to just talk to one another. There's so many ways to do that. I would encourage you to really step out of this idea that we're going to come into a classroom, we're going to sit down after the girls have been in school for 7 hours today. We're going to sit down. We're going to, don't get out of that seat. You need to sit. Everybody needs to sit. Well, they've been sitting all day. This isn't school. This is their program. So if you need to be flexible on the fly so that you notice everyone's a little wound up today, and the activity that they had planned is not going to work effectively today, what can we do to change it up so that they're not having to sit in their seats, so that they can get outdoors, so that they can work on whatever it is that they actually want to do? And you can get there very quickly by simply asking them, so I see that this isn't really interesting you today. What did you have in mind? What would you like to be doing? And when you can frame things in the positive, rather than saying, why aren't you doing this? Why didn't you finish the activity that we talked about today? Well, you're not going to earn that badge now. So, I mean, I'm not even sure why you came to the meeting today. Like, we're not that person. We're supportive, girl caregivers that want to make a positive impact in their lives. So using positive language, not criticizing them for not doing something, but rather saying like, hey, you've been going to the bathroom a lot today. Can you tell me more about that? Like, are you feeling okay? What's going on? Do you just think the bathrooms are really cool? Are you helping to clean them? Like, what is it that you're doing over there? Because you'll find out the girls have some really great ideas, or they were actually, every time they went to the bathroom, they were actually taking a box of Kleenex to this family that's down the hall in the library, because they're facing a loss, and she wanted to help them. So she took them boxes of tissues every time she went to the bathroom. Like, don't make assumptions, don't make snap judgments. You have to communicate with the girls. You can't just assume that the reason that they yell at you today, or the reason that they refuse to talk to any of the girls while they're doing their work, you can't assume that that's what it's like at home. You can't assume that that's what it's like in their school day, because maybe they have an IEP or another plan for their school day that causes them to be isolated all day. And maybe at home people shout at each other and they have very aggressive, like loud, forceful, maybe even physical, high energy conversations or arguments to share their feelings or to get their point across. So if that's what they're used to at home, you need to keep in mind that, like, this is a totally different environment for them and they have no idea how to act. Especially being away for this last year. Like, that's going to be a really tricky thing for girls. They're going to feel uncomfortable potentially coming to the meeting. They're going to not know, like, ooh, are we still friends? Because I haven't like talked to you in like 6 months. So taking those opportunities to sit down with them and ask why they're like, I see that you're frustrated with this. Can you tell me what's going on? Do you have all the tools that you need to make that happen? Do you have another idea for how we could accomplish this? Like, really framing things in the positive and asking them questions. Let them solve it. Let them share the solution. You just are trying to help them find the right words to share how they're feeling, because they just don't have them yet. Okay, so what do we do to improve their environment? Environmental effects are incredibly impactful on youth. And so this is something that, with very little, work on your part as a volunteer, these are things that really can be implemented without you doing a whole lot. So obviously we're not like buying furniture for anything, but you want to evaluate the space where your troop is meeting. Does it look like a positive, girl-friendly, girl-safe space? Or are you in something that looks more like a dungeon, or you're in a dark basement? Or I know that there were troop meetings held in I think Owasso, yeah, in Owasso, in a mobile home where there had been water damage and there was no heat, and it was the only place we had, but it wasn't a great environment. And so, we'd bring table coverings and we'd hang posters on the windows while we were there and do whatever we could to make it feel safe for girls and it like it was their place. But we had to really put some effort into that. So evaluate the space where you're meeting. Does everyone feel welcome? If it's at your house, then, what are you doing to make sure that the girls are super comfortable when they come in, and that they know where the bathroom is, and that they know if you have a dog, and how they feel about animals. Like, really making sure that they're comfortable so that they can have an environment that's safe, that they can really develop and grow in. So environmental cues, this is like what I was talking about when we knew that someone was having some struggles with transition times. Like, that was an issue that we saw there. Like, there was a lot of reaction to when we switched activities, or went on to different parts of the meeting. That's when you want to really engage with these environmental cues, where you're yes, everybody else is going to be told in another minute or two that it's 5 minutes till cleanup, but we're going to go over here and we're going to let them know that, hey, just so you know, with the egg timer and that kind of thing, giving them the 5 minutes or whatever. on that egg timer so that they know what's coming, they know when. And another example of that would be like someone that's having a really hard time saying thank you or showing their appreciation or their gratitude, like giving them that verbal cue that like, hey, today at the cookie booth, I just wanted to remind you that when someone purchases cookies from us, here's what you want to say. And if they miss it a couple of times, then you're just gonna remind them again. And it's you sharing with them the positive language to use and the proper words to use to communicate what the message is, because they clearly don't have it. They clearly don't say please and thank you at home. That's not something their teacher at school reinforces either. So you're the one that's teaching them that, how to be a great human. Let's see, we kind of talked about transitions already. That group activities, those are so important. When you're setting up those cookie booths, again, depending on what grade they're in, someone that like, oh, I don't want to go to the cookie booth there, or they never show up. If you put them in charge of setting up the cookie booths or the nut huts, and they have to like call the business owner and talk to them about having a booth there, or maybe it's you take them to have that conversation with the owner, they are now invested in that location at that cookie booth. And so, if they have to source a table and they have to make sure we have change, and, by putting them in charge and helping them find that vested interest, it's all of a sudden going to change their attitude towards the project or the activity or the outing. The rules and expectations, super important with laying out, what's happening today. If you remember back to elementary school or your kids being in school, like most teachers would have an agenda for the day on the chalkboard, same kind of thing, and if you have just a basic rundown of what we're doing, or maybe the girls create it at the end of this meeting, they're putting together their agenda for the next meeting. Give them that buy-in if grade level appropriate, so that they'll help to take control. They'll remember that they're supposed to do XYZ next time because they were part of making that agenda and they volunteered for it. So maybe they're responsible for calling everyone and reminding them. That ongoing monitoring and positive attention. This is like the best thing that you can do. So even again, if it's that girl that you just think she hates you, that she probably has like a voodoo doll at home that she's sticking pins into, she probably adores you. Just side note, it's really important for those girls that when you see that they're doing something great, and as adults, we're not super tuned into that. We don't pay attention to things that kids are doing well. We have the tendency to only focus on when they're not meeting our expectations, which, that stinks. So that's something that I know I personally am working really hard on. But identifying and calling them out for doing, really great stuff. Like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, Erin, for taking the recycling out today. That was so awesome of you to take the initiative. Or, hey, I saw your proposal for this group silver award, like, and it looked like, Jenna, you typed it, like you did a great job, well done. Looking for those opportunities rather than just saying like, hey, yeah, nice job, or just calling them out when they do something bad. And keep track of it. So if you're doing like some observations of the group and you just have little note cards that you kind of write on while they're doing different activities, because of course those girls are leading the meetings, including that in it. Like, hey, today Erin did something really awesome, and here's what it was, and here's how it impacted those around her. Okay. Oh my goodness. Come on, computer. You can do it. well, we're just frozen. I hope everybody's still there. Oh, I got it, I think. Okay, here you go. This is about making sure that we as adults are modeling conversations about behaviors respectfully. So your co-leader really gets irritated easily by this one girl, and you don't seem to have any issues with her. She listens really well to you.